So what is Finland famous for? Well, Santa Claus Village, Northern Lights, Nokia, and a wife-carrying competition? There's also Remedy, creators of Max Payne and the first to use Matrix-style bullet time in a video game. Although unlike Neo, Max gets through his days by downing absurd amounts of painkillers. But who among us hasn't? That tough-talking New York detective was how Remedy made their initial mark with the excellent Max Payne 1 and 2. But they have continued to release very good, or at least very interesting products in the years since, with their signature blend of dark, strong central characters, outstanding atmosphere, and the blurring of media boundaries within their games. Alan Wake has its diehards, myself among them, particularly for the spine-tingling story, although the flashlight plus gun gameplay has not aged the best. Quantum Break was decently well-reviewed for taking chances with its gameplay and narrative format. Oh, Game Plus TV show, ooh. But I can't think of a single conversation that I have ever had about that game. What does the title even mean? Breaking Quantums? Did we learn nothing from Quantum of Solace? There were also some mobile games, I guess?
Why?
Anyway, that brings us to Control, an original non-sequel which Remedy pumped out in only 3 years, their shortest development cycle since 2003's Max Payne 2. Seemingly unheard of in this age of development hell, delayed releases, and collectible stuffed AAA franchise games. And guess what, guys? It's friggin' amazing. Taking all of the successful elements from their previous releases, polishing them to a mirror sheen, and shooting them directly into the player's face. Of course, this came out in 2019 and it won multiple awards, so saying it's good isn't really groundbreaking. Really, Dan? Any other hot takes? Is pizza good too? First of all, yes. And second, fair enough. Control is one of my favorite games of the last 5 years. I just wanted an excuse to talk about it. So...
You called me. So here I am.
You play as Jessie Faden, a young woman arriving at the Federal Bureau of Control after years of searching for her younger brother, who went missing after a traumatic event in their childhood. An unknown entity seemingly residing in Jessie's head guides her to her destination. The Bureau is in a lockdown state, and Jessie wanders around observing the empty building and trying to piece things together from files scattered around the offices. After hearing a gunshot, she stumbles into the director's office and finds him lying dead on the floor next to an unusual gun that she struggles to control. Through the next series of events, you learn to control the weapon, connect with some of the surviving employees of the Bureau, and learn that by taking control of the dead man's sidearm, you have now become the new director of the FBC, and now you must save the Bureau from an encroaching organism called the Hiss, while also trying to find out what happened to your brother.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
I said I was looking for answers, but I might never understand them.
So the main story itself isn't necessarily something you've never seen before. We've got a lone protagonist, dropped into a strange place with little context, fighting off bosses and waves of enemies in order to reconnect with a lost family member. But that's like calling pizza bread with cheese. And yes, that's 2 pizza lines. I am hungry, and I like pizza. But what makes this game is the way it builds its world and fills in the lore, characters, and backstory of the FBC. There are a handful of NPCs you meet who are wonderfully drawn and have excellent voice acting. So what would normally be an eye-rolling exposition dump feels more like a conversation with a new friend. A new friend who immediately wants you to do things for them, but a new friend nonetheless. Much like Dark Souls, you can fill in the ancillary story as much as you want, or not, without having it fundamentally change how you play the game. And unlike Dark Souls, you don't need a doctorate in fantasy lore from friggin' Vatavidia to understand what you read. Most of the lore is scattered throughout the building in the form of file folders that you can pick up and read. The amount of care that went into every single one of these files is stunning. It's a peek into the daily routines of the people and departments that make up the Bureau. Employee book clubs, spouses' birthday dinners, and missing bathrooms all make appearances in the files. Want to know why there is a rubber duck locked up in a glass cell? There's a file somewhere that tells you. Every item has a backstory, but if you don't care where the floppy disk that lets you throw items with your mind came from, fair enough. Run along, little shooty boy, and have your fun. My personal favorites are the cheesy live-action videos that play via old-school projector or VHS. Some are spooky, some are informative, and some are just flat-out hilarious. But they are all worth a watch. My recommendation? Dive into the lore. It's worth it. Plus, reading is good for you. Just do it. Overall, the main story left me satisfied because Remedy kept it streamlined and trusted the setting to heighten the stakes and add a unique feel.
I am so close to something. Do you feel it?
I cannot say enough about the atmosphere in this game. The mixture of mundane government bureau architecture and fluorescent lighting and unusual sounds, just starting with the empty office spaces. Did you ever have to go to your school at night when you were a kid? Walking through the half-lit empty hallways and cafeteria on your way to that one room where there were actual humans? It was always such an unsettling experience. That's the overarching feel as you walk through the halls and offices of the Federal Bureau of Control. There is some definitively scary imagery, and there were a few things that startled me, but this is not a horror game. It just feels off. This vibe is heightened with the use of a retro aesthetic featuring old film projectors, corded Bakelite telephones, mail tubes, and reel-to-reel players. The brutalist architecture of its real-life exterior inspiration extends to the interior room designs and feels like a real-life place that's just been turned slightly askew, so it doesn't quite line up with the world you know. The sound of your shoes echoing on the floor, the repetitive chanting of seemingly gibberish phrases, the office-attired people floating in midair without attacking you. Every corner brings a weird thing to marvel at and a new surprise to grab you. The sound design is incredible as well, with each screech and hit and hum tuned and balanced to fit the disconcerting feel. And across it all, nothing is out of place. Too often, games will have a setting where different parts feel bolted together as if they were born of totally different concepts. And while that can be brushed off as variety, it is much more rare and satisfying to have that variety within the different departments of the FBC focused as part of the same idea. The setting, the sounds, and the design all combine to make a cohesive vision of this ominous government organization.
And this gun's alive. I'm happy. Happy to be here.
So lore is great and everything, especially for people like me. But what about the combat? Well, it's complicated. It's awesome and a little disappointing. Within 10 minutes, the player gets the initial gun in its first weapon form, called Grip, which is a basic pistol. It gets a big introduction and it feels great. The sound is satisfying and it gives a nice heavy punch. Soon after, you get a power called Launch, allowing you to literally rip pieces of architecture out and throw them at enemies. It is amazing. I can't overemphasize how wild the first 4 to 5 hours of this game are as you see everything for the first time. The painterly smears that explode into orange-red haze when you hit a headshot are beautiful, and the high-pitched whine emitted when you pull a piece of concrete or an enemy's body towards you is very satisfying. The problem is, with the
Guns. Lots of guns.
it really doesn't get that much better. Each is fine in their own way, and I'm sure every player has their favorite. And the standards are all here. Shatter, shotgun. Spin, submachine gun. Pierce, sniper rifle. Charge, rocket launcher. I got some use out of each here and there, but even at the very end of the second DLC, with some of the most powerful enemies in the game, I was still just using a modified version of the first gun. The other ones just felt a little inessential.
But Dan, you can mod Pierce to do 1,000,000 headshot damage when you're aiming down the sight from a crouch across the room.
Shut up! This game is at its best when the player is flying around the room, taking advantage of their powers, dodging behind architecture, and shooting heads, not crouching behind a half wall and lining up headshots from across the room. This is a third-person shooter, not a third-person cover shooter, you lards. So altogether, the first gun feels great all the way to the end, especially as you upgrade it throughout. But after 2 full playthroughs of experimenting with all the guns, I was left wishing that the other weapons could measure up to the excellence of that very first one. Now, I've already extolled the virtues of Launch, and it absolutely is the star of the show. But coming in a very close second is friggin' Flying, which can be upgraded to include a superhero slam. Wait, no, that's not right. A superhero slam. Man, what is going on? A superhero slam. That's the one. And if that doesn't get you going, I don't know what to tell you. Dash is useful, but nothing to write home about. The shield and possession abilities also have their uses, but honestly, I don't know that I'd miss them if they weren't there. The headline here is flying and throwing things with your mind, and that never stops feeling awesome. Once you get the hang of that, as good as it feels, and it does feel good, there is not a whole lot left.
There was something there. A presence.
The Control Ultimate Edition comes with both DLCs from 2020, the Foundation and AWE. Just a couple notes on both. Don't worry, no spoilers. The Foundation is fine. It's about 3 more hours of the combat and the people you like, but it takes the story, mostly, out of the Bureau building, and the game loses a little bit of that atmosphere that I raved about earlier. Still fun, but it's kinda take it or leave it. Now, AWE is a whole other animal.
Whatever you do, stay in the light.
We come back again to Alan Wake, which, although achieving cult popularity, never got the full sequel that fans of the game wanted. AWE fully immerses Control in the world and events of Alan Wake within the context of the Federal Bureau of Control. It takes that unsettling feel of the main game and dials it up into something much scarier and nerve-wracking. and in the process fully confirm that Alan Wake and Control take place in the same world. It's really fun, but it's even more fun to think about what Remedy will do in the future with this crossover. Alright, let's hit some nitpicks, some gold stars, and wrap this up. Nitpick 1! The mods. This is one of the most frustrating things to deal with in this game. It constantly throws personal and weapon mods at you, and as you progress through the game, they level up in tier. And by the time you hit the DLC, there are 6 tiers of mods for yourself and your different weapon forms that pop out of the enemies like damn pinatas. But with extremely limited inventory space, it is just so frustrating to get pulled out of the gameplay over and over because you have to go through the menu to deconstruct a load of useless mods. Nitpick 2! Alright, next, there are the side missions. And look, there are a couple of amazing side missions, with the mirror and the fridge, but 90% of the side missions involve just cleaning mold or singing to plants or just shooting some guys. It's Ubisoft grade checklist fodder. Gold Star 1! You meet Ati the janitor minutes into the game and he is an absolute madman and a delight. Veteran Finnish TV actor Marty Suosalo fills this character with an absolute boatload of personality and mystery, and I just always perk up when he's on the screen. It's just fantastic. And the BAFTAs agreed. Gold Star 2! 2 words. Ashtray, maze. Now that's all I'm going to say about it, but this sequence is worth the price of the game on its own. Alright, I picked this game to start my Twitch channel, my YouTube channel, and now my first review recap thingy for a reason. Because it's one of my favorites. Obviously, I'm not so naive as to call it a perfect game, because it's not, but it does so many things extremely well. From that basic combat, to the story, to the setting, to the lore. In my opinion, it stands as one of the most unique must-play games of the last 5 years. Now I'm gonna go get that pizza that I've been just dreaming about since I started this video, and you, just go play the game, or finish it if you haven't. Among Us or Apex Legends will still be there when you get back.